Hello there, denizens of the internet. I am Alex, and I'm basically here to try and, well, play this game that I remember from my childhood. It's called Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist is the game in particular here. It's a fairly common release to PlayStation Store, the Xbox Store, I believe Steam. And it's a nice nostalgic pickup for people who watched some of the old Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows. But you may have noticed that there's like 5 different series, and you probably only remember one of these two, or 2 of them, if you're a fairly old nostalgic player. So you might be wondering, what do I need to do to be able to compete in these Duelist challenges? What's everyone playing online? How do I compete in these more competitive deck-built arenas where the strategy of the game is going to matter more, and what's currently strong is probably going to perform better? So that's what I'm making this video, and hopefully more videos for, is to show some decent decks that you can probably understand from the old cards that have a decent chance at competing in the Duelist challenges, can win you some games on the multiplayer. And we'll start with my personal favourite oldie deck, and that's Blue Eyes White Dragons, which is... it's one of the iconic boss monsters from the original series. It's a fairly big dragon, and most of the deck that I've built around it here supports just summoning it immediately, summoning multiple copies of it, and then using it and whatever else you have on the field to go into your extra deck to play more strong cards, to negate most of what your opponent is trying to do, or to just win you the game. It can explain... I'm trying to think of how to best explain to start with. So, basic utilities. These cards will send your Blue Eyes White Dragon to the graveyard from the hand and from the deck. And these cards will revive your Blue Eyes White Dragons from the graveyard and whatever else you happen to put there. This card and these 3 trap cards are very good at just negating your opponent's stuff, and then we have the 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons that the deck is here to support, an Outbrave Dragon and a Divine Dragon Lord Felgrand, which are a small little package that you can send to the graveyard to very quickly destroy an opponent's monster. Dragon Spirit of White, because it's effectively another Blue Eyes White Dragon. It gets treated as a normal monster, which works with Dragon Shrine, works with certain cards. I think that might be it. Oh no, it works with Silver's Cry as well. It means that you can special summon him instead, and he can remove spells and traps, so he's also pretty useful for that. Effect Veiler, which is another level 1 tuner, which this deck cares about, because the only real monsters you can synchro summon are level 9. Which synchro summoning is adding the levels of all the monsters that you used together to make a monster from the extra deck that has that total level. It's why we can make level 9, is because we have level 8 dragons and a level 1 tuner. Then we have Honest, which is a fairly old hand trap, just really helpful for battle-oriented decks, because you can get a pretty big buff to your monster's attack points when they're being surprise attacked. Maiden with Eyes of Blue is a decent defensive monster. It can occasionally pull out some big dragons, but you're usually just using it to defend yourself against the AI if you open with it. Sage with Eyes of Blue is a big player. You can discard him from the hand to start summoning Blue Eyes. You can discard him to target Maiden, which then summons the 2 Blue Eyes. You can discard him to target Whitestone of Ancients, which summons a Blue Eyes immediately and a Blue Eyes at the end phase. Just a whole lot of fun. And then the extra deck is 2 level 9 synchros and some synchros you can pull out with them. The Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon is the biggest player. He's quite defensive. You can summon him pretty easily, and he can tribute himself to pull any light dragon type synchro monster from your extra deck to the field. If you pick Azurai's Silver Dragon, the last part of his text doesn't matter. He would destroy it during the end phase, but Azurai's doesn't care, just protects itself. If you pick this guy, you then probably want to synchro him away into Stardust Dragon. And then we have 2 Blue Eyes Twin Burst Dragon, which is just quite nice for getting over inconvenient defenders. And the Xyz toolbox is mainly Galaxy Eyes, Tachyon and Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon are the base bodies to go into Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter and Galaxy Eyes Prime, Galaxy Eyes Full Armor Photon Dragon, which are your 2 best extra deck monster plays turn 1, along with Hope Harmony Dragon to Dark Galaxy, which is really good if your opponent plays pretty spell heavy, can just negate them. And then we have 2 occasionally pulled out monsters, Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand and Thunder End Dragon. Thunder End Dragon is a Dark Hole on legs. Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand negates your opponent's monster effects. So that's all fairly well and good. So let's try and show you how this would work in a duel. I've beaten through GX and 5Ds, so now we're just working on, not GX and original Yu-Gi-Oh, so now we're working on 5Ds. We'll start with, I guess, Infernity. I'm hoping to win this rock, paper, scissors so that I can pick to go second. There we go. I like going second with this deck. There's the occasional draw where you can just put 9,000 damage on the table, blow up your opponent's field, and just win the game turn 2. And then there's hands like this, which are fairly awkward. Okay, my opponent's going to start pretty defensive. I'm probably going to have to start similarly defensive. Just activate a field spell, because I have 2. And set one of these guys. That's about the best this hand is going to pull out, I believe. Could have done a bit more. I could have sent a Blue Eyes to the graveyard if I had this guy face up, and then just special summoned it with this. But this is about as good, given what he's probably going to end up doing. Yeah, that's about what I expected. Okay, he's probably just going to... And then we get to pull a Dragon Spirit of Wyatt. And the reason we pull that one is because it can just immediately activate its ability and blow up his back row. Really nice removal. Basically means that the only thing we have to worry about is that Synchro monster. No, it's going to be prompting me to use the quick effect of Dragon Spirit of Light. Let's go ahead and use Dragon Shrine to discard Blue Eyes White Dragon and Divine Dragon Lord Felgrand, sure. And then we can have some fun. I'm just going to use this turn to show you some of the plays that this deck makes. So we're going to not respond, summon the Blue Eyes. I guess we could at this point, because we may as well just get in the graveyard and special summon the Blue Eyes White Dragon from our hand. If you're wondering, that's what its quick effect does. If you have a Blue Eyes in the hand, it will allow you to special summon. So now we can go into the Xyz monsters. Boom, Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon. Which doesn't matter at all, because I'm just going to immediately replace it with Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon. I would go into full armor, but we don't need him. He's... because we're going to get rid of this monster anyway. So we can go straight into Dark Matter Dragon, use his special ability, send 3 cards from my deck to the graveyard, and then send 3 of our opponent's monsters to the banish zone, and then I can just soul charge. Let's recover that guy. Sure. Take half my life points in a hit, but Divine Dragon Lord Felgrand shows its usefulness. Now we'll just get some additional bodies on the field. And then Divine Dragonlord Pokemon special ability activates, I banish his monster for free, and then he gains 400 attack points, which is equal to his level times 100. And then we get to Synchro Summon. We go straight into Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, because that's the only one of the two we could pick. We need specifically Blue Eyes White Dragon if we want to Synchro Summon a Blue Eyes Silver Dragon. But this guy basically counts as a Blue Eyes Silver Dragon, because he can summon it at any time. I think that's a pretty good field, turn 2. Our turn 2, anyway. Didn't even want to do that, because could maybe have caught him out, although it wasn't very likely. We can just immediately get this guy out for free, because of Vampire Dragon. And yeah, our AI opponent is just going to set a monster, set a trap, and set another trap. I'm hoping to draw Twin Twisters. Yes, sure. Give ourselves some blanket protection. Azurize is now going to protect every dragon that's on my field from effect destruction for the next basically 2 turns. So I've got no real worries about smashing in. And we can win the duel. And so that's what your current Blue Eyes White Dragon decks will probably try and do. The deck usually focuses on synchroing out either Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon or Azure Eyes Silver Dragon, and then just Xyz, toolboxing whatever it needs. This guy, because of how you summon him, basically is another Xyz monster. He's very, very specific, but he's really good at what he does, which is destroying things in combat and attacking twice on monsters. Just really helpful to have. Suggestions. If you're working towards this deck, I would suggest looking, if you don't have all the cards for it yet, at adding spell removal effects to replace most of these things, like Mystical, Space Typhoon, Galaxy Cyclone, things like that. If you're just running against the AI, you can just include the Forbidden stuff. Pot of Greed and Monster Reborns are just as good as most of these cards, if not better. Monster-wise, if you're missing some of these cards, best suggestions I have is for another level 8 is Rabbit Dragon. It's a normal monster with some really high stats, so that's about as good as Blue Eyes is going to get, plus it means it can be targeted by this, it means it can be targeted by this. For the tuner side, if you don't have all of these, I'd certainly recommend some of each, but you can get Flambeau Guard, which is a level 1 normal tuner monster, and it's a dragon, so you can put another spell called Cards of Consonance in the deck, which is basically like trade-in. So if you don't know trade-in, you discard a level 8 monster from your hand to draw 2 cards. Cards of Consonance, if I can find it. Hoping I have it anyway. Yeah, Cards of Consonance. Basically does the same thing, but instead of a level 8 card, you discard a dragon type tuner with 1,000 or less attack points. I don't run it in this deck because I only have 3 dragon tuners with 1,000 or less attack. Some decks run more Whitestone of Ancients specifically so that they can run that card more consistently. Another card that you can run if you're looking to fill up. So Cards of Consonance, and if you're going to run Cards of Consonance, I'd recommend running Whitestone of Ancients somewhere. And if you don't have that, or if you don't have enough, you think, and you're not hitting it consistently, I'd also recommend Flambeau Guard. I'm trying to think what else suggestion-wise. The only other thing to note is this is built entirely with the main game. There are about 10 or 12 DLCs for this game, each of which basically gives you a dex or 2 decks worth of cards to build decks from, and they're all fairly new support cards. Like there's Red Eye support cards, there's some of the other Dimension Dragon support cards, which is a new subset of dragons introduced in Arc 5. There's stuff like that. But this can be entirely built with the main game, and the only packs you really need to open are, for most of the Blue Eyes basic support, Maiden, Blue Eyes White Dragon, I think Trade-In, and I think Dragon Shrine. You need to open Kyber's packs. For most of the other stuff, like Mausoleum of White, Return of the Dragon Lords, White Stone of Ancients, Dragon Spirit of White, Divine Dragon Lord Felgrand, Arcwave Dragon, and Sage with Eyes of Blue, the big meat of the deck, you need to be opening Gong Strong packs, which are the ones from Arc 5. And for most of the other stuff, Honest comes from Bakura's pack, I think Effect Veiler comes from Yusei's pack. Raigeki you probably start with, I think, in this game, or at least it's fairly easy to get. Soul Charge I couldn't tell you, but I think it's pretty easy to get a hold of. And the Solons, I believe, come from Zuzu Boyle's pack, which is the girl next to Gongstrong. So yeah, it's a fairly easily accessed deck. It's something that most of the old players should recognize a fair number of the cards in, and you should be able to understand what most of them work towards. But yeah, it incorporates most of the important stuff to make it a decent player in the current meta. It can at least work in this game, and it's not the worst thing ever. So, if you like Blue Eyes, if you don't have a deck that you know you want to play with, I would certainly recommend giving this a try. Some things that I would not recommend on the substitutions, by the way, are any of the other Blue Eyes fusions and fusion support cards. If you're wondering what that means, it basically means don't run Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon unless you want your deck to suffer, and don't run Blue Eyes Shining Dragon unless you want your deck to really suffer. Don't run Burst Stream of Destruction because you have Raigeki and you have big dragons to beat with. Don't run Kyberman because literally every level 1 tuner in this deck is better. I don't run the White Stone of Ancients or the White Stone of Legend because, as I said, I don't run Cards of Consonance, so I don't need it because I don't need another target for it. But it's personal preference. Definitely don't run Malefic Blue Eyes, it's really bad for this deck. It doesn't really work. It won't always survive because you can't always have the field spell in play. They don't have terraforming, so we can't like run 5 copies of this field spell just to make sure. It's possible, but you're certainly making the deck weaker by adding that guy and making that guy something that you try and actively play. Most of the other Eyes of Blue support, I don't run it just because there's some stuff you can pull with it. It's basically Master with Eyes of Blue, Priestess with Eyes of Blue, and Protector with Eyes of Blue. There's some stuff you can do, they all have effects when they're summoned and effect when they go to the graveyard. But for the most part, Sage is just the best one because its summon effect searches anything you want, and its discard to the graveyard effect lets you just pull Blue Eyes straight to the field. And Maiden's just really nice because she's similar to Mirror Force in that she really deters attackers. And that's about all you need to know with this deck. Obviously you don't want Blue Eyes Toon because you don't play Toon cards. Drama Blue shouldn't even be really filtered in this pile, and you don't run Paladin White Dragon because it's one of the oldest Blue Eye support cards. Literally everything printed since will have been better for this deck. Run Maiden, run Sage, run the White Stone of Ancients. They're all probably better. And that pretty much concludes this. So that's what I would suggest for a player trying to get back in. It's fairly understandable. It's pretty easy to start making plays with. I've explained how you get through most of these combos and what you should be aiming to do with them, I feel like. The synchro monsters are all fairly self-explanatory. You go into this guy most of the time, and then you just tribute it to go straight into that guy for the protection effect sometimes. It's a fairly easy to play deck, because most of it's going to be just doing the same stuff. If you can make a Synchro monster, you make this guy. If you can make an Xyz monster, you make this guy. Maybe you make him, if you're going second and your opponent's made some pretty aggressive plays, you make this guy first to pop one of your opponent's face-up cards, but then you just overlay him into this guy, and then you just start setting up your graveyard, making more plays. It's a fairly simple deck. You're mainly just using the blue eyes to get stuff out of your extra deck. Pretty much everything that isn't a Galaxy Eyes or is Hope Targeting Detecting Galaxy in the Xyz toolbox, including these two guys, are just... you'll see them once every 10 games when you need them. They're good for the 10 games, but they're not all that relevant otherwise. If you're going Synchro monsters, you put Blue Eye Spirit Dragon on your turn, tribute it in your opponent's turn, have this guy set up for your standby phase so you can start just getting value by resurrecting dragons. And then, if you can make an Xyz monster at any point, you probably just go Hope Harbinger to just negate their stuff if they're on their last legs, Full Armor if you need to pop something now, and Dark Matter if you need to set up your graveyard, which is usually your first turn. So that's most of it explained. Other than that, it pretty much runs itself. So that's Blue Eyes in a nutshell. There's a couple more decks that I would know a decent bit about, and there's a couple I've been trying to build. So if this helped, and if you thought, I wouldn't mind seeing some more sort of boiled down explanations, some decent deck lists, some showing me how to play, maybe highlighting some combos I might miss, I'd be more than happy to try and build some of those. If you need some, you need to just let me know in comments, or I might just do one on my own next time. I might do another using one of these that I've got built, or might get one of the other ones built. Who knows? But that's it for now, so I guess thanks for watching.